Welcome to Transformative Principle. This is the first episode of 2022, episode 462. Wow. To start out, I want to give a couple of highlights from the last year. First of all, by the way, the first episode of each month, I'm going to be doing a solo podcast. So I look forward to spending time talking just one-on-one with you. So first, we're going to start out with some highlights from this last year. We released 86 episodes on this podcast. That is a lot. Since I left being a principal and started consulting full-time, I've had more time to produce content. And so I did 3 to 4 interviews per week, and it has been great. I also have a huge backlog already for this year, 2022. You've got some amazing people coming up soon. So I'm looking forward to that. We also did 200,000 downloads this year alone and broke 1 million downloads total. So for all of you who are listening, I just want to say thank you. You are awesome. And I so appreciate you listening to Transformative Principle week in and week out. It really is amazing. So today I'm going to do something a little bit different, like I mentioned, which is we're going to introduce some new things. So the mastermind that I've talked about numerous times on the podcast is amazing. And I'm introducing something new today. It's called How to Be a Transformative Principal. And it's all about providing support to principals to help them become transformative principals. Later this year, I'll be releasing a new book, probably end of March, beginning of April or something like that. And it's going to be called How to Be a Transformative Principal. It's absolutely been a labor of love doing this podcast for the last almost 9 years. And I'm honored to have John Catt publish this book again. They published my last book, School X. They are also a sponsor of this podcast, and I'm very grateful for that. So at the end of the year, or at the end of this podcast, I'm going to share some highlights from the top 5 episodes of the podcast from this year. But first, I'd like to share my thinking around support, which is the theme for How to Be a Transformative Principal this month. So let me tell you a little bit about how to be first, because it actually ties in well with this topic. So over the last 5.5 years that I've been doing the mastermind, I've had a lot of people interested in the mastermind, but they just couldn't make it work because of the time commitment or the meetings, or maybe they weren't principals yet. They were assistant principals, or they were aspiring principals, or they were still in the classroom. And the mastermind is really designed for people who've been in the position at least 3 years. You know, if somebody's really interested, they can join the mastermind and not be a principal, having been a principal for 3 years. But it usually works best when they have that experience and know what their main job is. So I haven't really had a great way to support aspiring principals, assistant principals, or principals in their first 3 years. So this new program, How to Be a Transformative Principal, is for you. It teaches you how to be a transformative principal based on the things I've learned from the 461 previous episodes of this podcast, plus the interviews I've done for the Transformative Leadership Summit. Many people have also said they need something asynchronous. So that's what I'm offering you here today. How to Be a Transformative Principal is largely asynchronous in that everything that I do, you can take advantage of in your own time. I do offer live coaching sessions as part of it, but if you don't make it to that, you can just listen in to the recording afterward. So let me break down How to Be a Transformative Principal works. The first week is a teaching newsletter that explains the theme based on a monthly theme from my upcoming book, How to Be a Transformative Principal. The second week is a coaching call with me about that same topic. The third week, you'll get a summary of the coaching call in your email, and if you join the tier that has an extra coaching call, you'll have another coaching call that you can attend. Finally, during the fourth week, we'll have a webinar with an expert on the topic for that month. You get all of this for less than $100 per month, so I'd love to have you join me. All of these events are exclusive to you as members, and there are some other bonuses that I'm working on as well. For example, when my book does come out, you'll get a free copy of it. And until it comes out, if you don't already have a copy of SchoolX, I'll send that to you for free as well. Now, if you're listening to this podcast, but you haven't joined the mastermind, this is for you. How to be a transformative principal is for you. You can learn more at jethrojones.com/howtobe. So I'm going to dive into the topic for this month, which is support. And in the coaching calls, I'll be talking about you supporting teachers, and hopefully we can talk about some teachers that are struggling and how you can support them effectively. And right now, I'm going to be talking to you about how you get support as a principal or as an aspiring principal. So I'm going to talk about 3 kinds of support that you can seek out. I believe there are 3 sources. There's crowdsourced, expert-sourced, and professional-sourced. So picture these as a 3-circle Venn diagram, and there is some overlap between the 2 of them, and that's fine. So crowdsourced support is basically what a PLN and a podcast is. It's something that you don't have to do a lot of effort to get. You can just go search and find. So you can ask people on Twitter or in Facebook groups. You can search a YouTube video and find out things, that kind of stuff. That's really what crowdsourced support is all about. There are other ways to do this, but we're going to keep it simple at that kind of a level. Expert sourced is where you get support from an expert, and it usually costs you something, either in monetary or some exchange of value. And then finally, professional sourced means that you are going to someone who is a professional, who's going to focus on that and is going to give you specific support in that area. So let's break this down a little bit so that it makes sense. Let's say you need to repair something in your house, like I have had to do, which is a fan in the bathroom. And the first thing that I did when I needed to replace this is I looked up on YouTube how to replace a venting fan in your home. The second thing I did is I asked my buddy Casey to help me, and he did. And to thank him, I bought him dinner. And what I probably should have done, because it would have saved me a lot of frustration and many hours of tinkering, is I should have just hired someone to do it professionally, because it would have been done in about an hour and I wouldn't have had all the stress and frustration. So those are the 3 different levels. The crowdsource is looking it up on YouTube. The expert source is my buddy Casey, who knew how to do those kinds of things. And finally is the professional is hiring someone to actually do that. That could be a handyman in this example, or it could be a licensed electrician who has a specific license to help out with that. So let me make it a little more personal. I'll share my wife's story. A little over 10 years ago, my wife's mom tragically and surprisingly passed away. My wife got some help from me and her friends, but the grief hits in different ways. She had that crowdsourced support and it seemed to be fine, but about 5 years went by and we realized she needed more help. So we got her an appointment with a counselor. That was professional sourced support. Then after a few sessions, she felt like it was working and she was doing much better, and she didn't think that she needed to continue that process with the counselor anymore. But after a little while, she felt like she still needed support. So she turned to an expert source support, which was a life coach. The life coach still costs money, but the value my wife is getting dealing with past emotions is way more than the financial investment she's paying. Now, I'm not here to say that a life coach is better than a therapist, but I am here to emphatically say that you need to choose the support that works best for you personally. So in some instances, crowdsourced is the way to go. If you've been listening to this podcast, this is an amazing resource. It is awesome. I've interviewed hundreds of amazing leaders. I tell people all the time that you can get a PhD in ed leadership by listening to all 460 episodes of this podcast. In other instances, you need more support and it's worth it to invest something in it. Sometimes you need a little more support, so you find an expert. That's what the How to Be a Transformative Principal program is for. It's an expert source to help you learn how to be a transformative principal. Maybe you need professional support, which is really focused on you and your growth that's more intensive, like the mastermind or one-on-one coaching that I offer. Those are more intense and give you more specific help. So whatever it is that you need, these are opportunities to help you. So as I was thinking about this, I was saying, what do I have in each of these areas? So for me, crowdsourced, this podcast, my free newsletter, and my social media stuff, that is all crowdsourced. That's all free, easy to access. You can get that. The second level, expert sourced, these are where I'm actually teaching you, being the expert, sharing what I'm learning with you. And then my one-on-one coaching and my mastermind are professional level. Those are more intensive, more focused, more specific. So whatever kind of support you end up going with, you have to invest in that support. Support is not you finding someone else to solve your problem for you. We often think that's what support means, that somebody else is going to take care of the problem for us. That is not the case. It's getting help so that you can solve your own problem. If you think of that 3-circle Venn diagram that I mentioned before, and you draw a big circle around all 3 of those circles, yourself is the label for that big circle. And that is really what it is about. You are in charge of your own life. Nobody can solve your problems for you. You have to still do the work to do that. Sometimes that investment is low, as it is in PLNs, blogs, podcasts, YouTube videos, and books. Sometimes it's higher, like life coaches, conferences, and courses that you can buy. And finally, sometimes you need to invest more, like in one-to-one coaching, masterminds, or something else that's very specific to you. Intentionally, I'm trying to offer something for everyone. So how long have you been listening to this podcast? Has it been a good level of support for you? If you're listening today, I'm going to say that answer is yes. Could you benefit from more support? Well, if so, check out jethrojones.com/how-to-be. That's how, the number 2, and then be. Or check out the show notes at transformativeprinciple.org. I would love to help you out. Do you need even more support? Check out transformativeprinciple.com for the mastermind or one-on-one coaching. Either way, I'm here to serve you. I want to help you be the best principal that you can be. And even if you're not a principal yet, I want to help you in the How to Be a Transformative Principal program. All right, let's take a little break and thank our sponsor for today, John Catt Educational. They amplify world-class voices on timeless topics. I like to count myself in that list. And they have a lot of amazing authors that you can learn from, many of whom have been on this podcast. So they have the Coach's Guide to Teaching by Doug Lemov. They have the Feedback Pendulum, a manifesto for enhancing feedback and education. They have Putting Staff First, a blueprint for revitalizing our schools. And one that I like a lot by Jared Cooney Horvath is 10 Things Schools Get Wrong and How We Can Get Them Right. John Catt is also a proud publisher of the new book from me. Well, it's not new anymore. School X, How Principals Can Design a Transformative School Experience for Students, Teachers, Parents, and Themselves. And coming later this year, How to Be a Transformative Principal. So please visit us.johncattbookshop.com to learn more about bulk orders and how to bring John Catt's research-based materials to your school. And thank you to John Catt for sponsoring this podcast. Okay, let's get to the highlights from the top 5 podcasts in 2021. The first one is the episode that I did with PJ Capozzi, episode 377, where teacher evaluation fails. And that was a really great podcast. I loved talking with PJ. He's got some really good insight and good information that helped me understand some things about evaluation. One of the things that PJ talked about is how resource intensive teacher evaluation is. And This is something that you and I have known for a long time, right? The other thing is that it really does not give us a good bang for our buck. And one of the things that I did as part of my chapter in the new book on evaluations is talked about how we don't really need evaluations as much as we think we do, especially since about 97% of teachers are proficient anyway. What we really need is to improve our practice and ensure that our vision for our school is actually being implemented. So here's PJ sharing some thoughts about teacher evaluation. And I encourage you to go check out episode 377 later if you'd like to hear more about what he has to say about teacher evaluation, if you haven't listened to it already.
When I talk to teachers and when I talk to principals, the vast majority of the time, what they would articulate to me is that the process is incredibly resource intensive, that resource most namely being their time, and stressful, and very seldomly leads to true school improvement at large, and at the more micro level to true teacher improvement.
For more from this podcast, check out Transformative Principal. So again, that was PJ Capozzi, episode 377. Go check that out. That was the most downloaded podcast episode this entire year. The second most downloaded one was from Chad Dumas, and he is the author of a book called Let's Put the C in PLC. And I really enjoyed my conversation with him, and been great to get to know him more over the course of this year. And what I really appreciate about him is the need for having community in our schools and how vital this is. So I'm going to share what he said, and how part of that community is not just everybody agreeing and being happy and fun all the time, but it is about understanding that we need to have conflict, we need to have disagreement, and that if we all agree, then somebody's not necessary. We don't need that person there if they just go along with everything. We need different perspectives. We need people to say what they think and what they believe. And that's just so important. So this is episode 425 with Chad Dumas.
I heard someone once say that if there's three of us in a room and we all agree, then two of us are unnecessary. And I think that's maybe what you're getting to, is this idea of we need to engage in cognitive conflict. We need to be sharing ideas with each other. The problem that we run into many times in schools and in life is that we shift out of cognitive conflict and get into affective conflict, and we become in conflict with each other personally. And that's no bueno, no good. We want to stay in cognitive conflict.
Once again, that was episode 425 with Chad Dumas. Really great stuff. Going on to our third most downloaded interview was with Marissa Thompson, who is a teacher in San Diego. And I connected with her because she shared something about her principal that was awesome. And then I talked to her and thought, man, I need to talk to her as well. And she talked about support. So it's good that this was one of the top 5 this year. Is she talked about support, which ties into our theme for this month. And she said that she doesn't really need the principal to solve the problems for her. What she needs is brain space to be able to think and work through problems herself as a teacher. And this was a recurring theme from this last year, that we try so hard to solve problems and fix things for other people, but we really don't need to, because they can figure it out themselves. They have that power within them, and they need support, time, and brain space to make that happen. So this is Marissa Thompson, episode 376. Enjoy.
I appreciate the wanting to solve it for the teacher, that I was never trained how to do this. And so that might mean more trainings. But at the same time, what I really needed, and what I will continue to need, I'm sure, throughout this year, is more brain space. I need more brain space. I need more time so that I can figure it out. Just as much as we want our students to figure it out, I'm the one using it every day. I'm the one creating every day. I don't want someone to provide me with the curriculum. I want to do right by my kids. I'm just going to need a little extra brain space to reflect well and be able to adjust creatively.
Once again, that was Marissa Thompson in episode 376. Going now to our next one, this is an interview with Jen Sullivan, and I kind of chuckled that this is the one that was downloaded so much also because it's about helping kids transition to college. Now, that's not a typical topic that I talk about, but when I talk to Jen, it was just, I felt like it was worthwhile for people to hear. And of course, again, we're coming back to this theme of support. And she's talking about self-advocacy for students and how that's one of the most important skills that they need to have is how to self-advocate. And it's interesting because I never thought that was an important skill when I was younger, but I've always been someone who's been a self-advocating individual. And so it makes sense that we can see, and when I became a teacher and a principal, I definitely saw that kids needed to learn how to advocate for themselves. And it's something that I teach my own children pretty strongly because I feel so powerfully about it. So this is episode 421 with Jen Sullivan.
So I challenged them in that next step. And I said, okay, so you're not happy about something. So what is the next step? So are you asking, right? Ask for help, ask to turn on a fan, ask for a blanket, whatever it is. So more than just stating, a problem or stating how you're feeling in the moment, what is that next step, right? And that's really what self-advocacy is. It's when students have a question, when they have a problem, when they feel anxious, when they don't understand, what is that next step?
Once again, that was episode 421 with Jen Sullivan. So definitely check that out if you want to hear more. Finally, the 5th ranked download this year was Trust-Based Observations with Craig Randall, which is episode 386. And this episode was just awesome. In fact, I love what Craig is doing so much that I asked him to connect me with other principals who are using his system. And I've got a bunch of episodes coming up that are doing amazing things in their schools because they're doing observations differently. In this clip that I'm going to share, Craig talks about the trust that comes in a community when you are working together in a collaborative way, supporting each other effectively, and it's just beautiful. Here is Craig from episode 386.
But as we do that and combined with all the other things, then over time, trust develops, and then the whole community becomes a community of trust. And because I'm not rating someone, and then if we look at like the research that says that as soon as we rate, they stop taking risks. When that's been taken out of it, I'm not rating their pedagogy, then they are more willing to look at that rubric at the beginning of the year and rate themselves and then make a decision about that. And then, of course, during each monthly professional development meeting, we go step in for minutes just to watch what's going on. But we even help the teachers with their action research goal if they ask for it.
Thanks so much for listening. Once again, that was Craig Randall from episode 386. I hope you've enjoyed this episode today. Please go to jethrojones.com/how2be. That is jethrojones.com/how2be, how to be, to learn more about the How to Be a Transformative Principal program.